Hey guys, I'm ripping through this pretty quick. I've got another vid doc for you guys. This one is a pretty big one. I tackled one of the most difficult things so far out of the things that I've been knocking out here, and it is the interactive functionality between the player and key items in the world. And if I take you over to Xmind, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you can see here, as you've seen in previous videos, if you've been following along with this series, I prioritize things based on what's more important. So player controller, I said, super vital. It should be the very first thing that you tackle and get programmed right away for your Unreal game. Definitely want to hit that first and get at least basic functionality working where you have enough so that in regards to prototyping you can move on and get other systems done and then come back to this one. But you want to make sure you get this one at the very minimum functional, which I already have. You've got a main menu here, which is not that important, so it's a blue number 3. Game mode is pretty important, but you can't prototype without a game mode right up front. I'd say player controller is more important because without that you literally cannot interact with your world at all. So that's the most important thing. Game mode, I would say it's a second priority. That's just my opinion. It's really important. It should be probably the second or third thing that you tackle when you're prototyping. And then we have the interactive object parent class. This one is vital. I gave this a priority 1. It's about as important as the player controller. If I had to compare the two, I'd say the player controller is just a little bit more important than this. But this is definitely vital, especially for an adventure exploration game, since you're probably going to be exploring and checking out, key items and looking for clues and things like that, which is what we want for this game. This becomes a priority 1 item, and it needs to be tackled right away. As soon as you start prototyping, this should be at the top of your list right after player controller. So it's Sunday today, and it looks like I've been a week working on this already. Yeah, since last Sunday. So it's Sunday. I spent a very good portion of the day working on this, just kind of tackling through it. I probably could have worked a lot faster, more efficiently. I had Amazon Prime Video in my other monitor the whole day, and I've been kind of watching TV, and I've been noticing that I can't multitask. I've been kind of glancing over, watching some TV, and then working, and I haven't been as efficient as I should have been. So something that took me all day to do should have taken a couple of hours to do. So anyway, that's beside the point. The point is, I went ahead and did the first pass on this interactive object parent class. Now the interactive object parent class does not need a 3D mesh, so I'm getting rid of that. It basically needs some collision components to create overlap events, and these are some of the basic functions that I kind of wanted with this guy, and I actually ended up creating much more functions than this, but I'll show you that in a second when we jump into Unreal. The main thing that I wanted was I wanted the ability to show a tooltip, and it's not really a tooltip, it's a clue. I want you to be able to see clues when you investigate and search for stuff, because if you remember, if I go over to the player controller, we have a search button, which by default on the mouse is the left mouse button. On the gamepad, it's actually the right trigger. And then we have an action button, and this one activates items in the world or picks up items that you find, say ammunition, health, key items, stuff like that. Sorry about that. And got a little distracted there. So these two functionalities are two different functionalities. One lets you search for clues, the other one lets you activate stuff. However, where it starts to get complicated is where these two features, these two functions overlap, and they have to work together to create a third tier of functionality, checks and balances, and stuff like that. And if that doesn't make any sense, it didn't make sense to me when I started doing this. It was the first time that I created a system for a system like this in Unreal that that was this complicated and needed this many features and stuff. So I kind of had to wrap my head around it first and then kind of tackle it and then kind of stop and think about it and then push forward some more and then kind of think about it, then realize I was doing it wrong, then think about it some more, push forward, and so on and so forth. So it was a little bit of a learning experience, but it was a lot of fun getting this done. So let me show you what I've gotten on Unreal, and then stuff will start to make more sense. So this is, if you remember from the last video, I think I talked about the damage stuff. So I created all this damage functionality where the player can take damage, and if their health reaches 0, they die. This is the same test level, and I have this new area over here that's well lit. And this area is for testing the interactive object. Okay, now if we look in XMind, the first thing I wanted to do was create a parent class of the interactive object. And every interactive object in the game, whether it's a door that you can open, a hatch that you can open, maybe a detonator on some dynamite or explosives that you can activate. It could be something as simple as picking up an item. Say you find a key card laying on a table in a room, and let's say it's a blue key card, and there was a blue key card door opener, a panel on a door a few rooms ago, and you kind of remember and go, oh wait, maybe this key card opens that. So you hit the action button and your character picks up the key card, adds it to their inventory, and now you've got that key card as a key item in your inventory that you can use when you go back to that door that you think you can open. You use the key card by using, again, the action button, which is part of this interactive object parent class, and you activate the door panel, and now the door opens. All that stuff falls under this class, this parent class of interactive object. So what are interactive objects in this game? An interactive object is anything that the player can directly interact with in order to make the story progress and complete objectives, and also add things to your inventory. So those two kind of categories: inventory stuff and objective progressive stuff, to get the missions done and get the campaign done and finish the game and win. Okay, so all that stuff falls under this interactive object parent class. Okay, so let me show you how it works. I'm going to jump into Unreal. I'm going to play an editor over here real quick, and we're going to run over to this area. Now, if you remember from previous videos, I made a search input, which is the left mouse button or the right trigger on a gamepad. And if I start to hold that down, you see that I get a zoom in effect, and I've got the debug mode on so you can see a spherical ray trace for objects. And as I look around in the level, and I also polished it up so if you start to look and you let go of the button, it won't fire a raycast. It'll only fire the raycast if you zoom in almost all the way, not all the way, but almost all the way. So I want to say about maybe 3/4 of the way, it'll fire a raycast. So if an object in the environment has any type of clues for you, say it's a picture frame on a wall across the room, or maybe there's a chandelier with like a necklace hanging off of it up in the air, you know, if you look at it and you fire one of these raycasts by going to search mode with the left mouse button and hold that down, you'll zoom in and you'll get a clue. If there's no clue there, nothing will happen, which is what's happening right now. But, oh look, there's a door. Well, I'm in this strange little room here, this world, and there's nothing interesting. Well, there's a weird glowing blue ball over there or whatever. But let's say this is the point of interest, right? So from far away, I don't get any clues because I'm really far away, so I gotta get a little bit closer. And then if I start looking for clues, boom, there we go. We get some text on the bottom that says searching. And that's just placeholder text. It doesn't mean anything. In the actual game, you would write something else. And let me actually prove that to you. I'm going to go to the door blueprint, and I'll talk about this in a moment. I might actually have to break this video in two just because there's so much to discuss and go over in detail here. And I'm sure people want to see this in detail. They don't just want to see a quick overview video for 2 minutes and then go, hey, how in the world did he do that? I had questions about this. He didn't show me that. That gets kind of annoying and frustrating. So I'm going to try to show you guys as much as I can in a reasonable amount of time. So if I go to my event graph, there's some functionality here for opening the door, and I'll show you that in a bit. Let me go to, you know what? Let me do this in the right order. I'm going to jump back into the game. Just because I'm starting to confuse myself, and if I'm confusing myself, I'm probably confusing the crap out of everybody watching this. So let's do this the right way. So I see an item in the world. There's some light on it. It looks like a door. I've been stuck in this room for a while, and I go, huh, a door. That's a point of interest. Let's go over and search for clues. I zoom in, and my character will say something. And he doesn't have to. A level designer can modify this so that there's no clue at all. But on the bottom of the screen, you can see some text that says searching. Okay, so we got a clue about the door. So I go, okay, looks like that door means something. Let's pretend that I found a pair of keys a while back, and the keys unlock this door. Okay, I'm gonna walk up to the door. If I try to do look for clues again, it's not, well, it is gonna search for clues because the collision. I'll fix that in a second. But if you're really close to it, okay, it shouldn't be searching for clues. Anyway, I'll have to look into that and see if it's a little bug. My fault. But anyway, the point is, if I look down at the doorknob, I get another piece of text, and this one's different. It says, please activate me. And if I hit the action button at this point, which is the space bar on the keyboard, on the gamepad, it'd be the A button, or if it's an Xbox controller, it'd be the A button. If it was a PS4 controller, it'd be the X button. So if I hit the action button, the door opens. And now I can go ahead and walk through here and continue on to the next area or whatever. If I hit it again, the door's going to close. And that's just because this door blueprint is set up to function that way. This door blueprint can do whatever in the world it wants to. Okay, or whatever I want it to. So if I wanted this door to crumble into pieces, I could do that when I go ahead and try to turn the doorknob. Maybe the doorknob breaks off and I'm like, holy crap, this door's busted now. I'm gonna have to find a sledgehammer. So now my next objective is to go looking for a sledgehammer, pick it up because it's an interactive object, come back to the door and smash it, right? So this door can do whatever it wants. It just, once I activate it, it could open, maybe it explodes in your face, maybe it crumbles to pieces, maybe the doorknob breaks, maybe the door doesn't open and I get the sound of a doorknob trying to open and I get a text that says, hey, the door's locked, go find the key. So I can do all kinds of stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So now let me go to the blueprint for the door, show you what in the world's going on here. I go to the viewport, I've got myself a door, of course. There's a door frame. There's a door, and there's two colliders. The first collider is this big one right here. And this collider, what it does is, this one detects the raycast that I shoot out when I go into search mode. And if I go back to my player blueprint, here is the functionality for search mode. So here's search for clues functionality, and it's still work in progress, so I'm still working on it. So if you're not sprinting, and you hit the search button, again, the left mouse button, and you hold it down because it's not a toggle, you have to hold it down, right? First thing we do is check that we're not sprinting. Then we zoom in with the camera, right? And then I've got all this crazy stuff going on over here. And basically what this weird looking stuff over here does is it fires the ray trace only if you've zoomed in a certain amount. So if you've zoomed in about, I want to say, close to 3/4 of the way, like 70-75% of the way there, it'll go ahead and show it as true, and it's going to shoot out, if I open this function up, It's going to shoot out a spherical trace for objects, which is that red thing that you see fire out of the camera. And if that hits a valid object, an interactive object, or when it hits an object, it's going to run this blueprint interface. If I open this blueprint interface, it's just a blueprint interface. I don't have the time to go over what blueprint interfaces are. It's a more advanced topic. There's lots of videos and lots of really good documentation on the Epic Games website that specifically tell you what interface blueprints are and how they work, and examples of how to get them to work for your game. Okay, and you can see I've got all these functions. I've got an action event, search start, search stop, action tip start, action tip end. That stuff will come in handy in a moment. You'll see why. So this is the parent class. I'll show you that in a second. So, sorry about that. So, when we fire off this ray trace, this spherical trace for objects, and we hit an object, we send this guy out to that object. If that object is an interactive object, which is this guy, this is the parent class, IO parent class, IO short for interactive object. What will happen is, if I go back, it's search start. So this event fires off over here, event search start. And it says search functionality, displays clues when searching objects from afar. Still work in progress. I'm almost done with it though. So this event fires from the player, right? When you fire the sphere trace, if it hits the object, it's going to go ahead and send that command, the blueprint interface, which goes into the interactive objects. The door, it could be a wall, it could be a hatch, it could be a picture on a wall, a poster, or a hole that you crawl through, whatever the interactive object is. It gets this event search start. Next thing it does is it checks that the player is not overlapping, because I don't want the is player overlapping. I see what I did. I deleted some stuff actually that I needed, and that's why this stuff wasn't working. I'll have to fix that later. Anyway, if the player's not overlapping, or in other words, if the player's not right up on the door, then it's going to do this. It's going to run this function, which basically creates this IO HUD, right? And I could show you the IO HUD. It's real simple. It's just a UMG widget with some text, and it's just using the default text block. And what happens is, it's not here, but what happens is I expose the text from that widget through this input. And what that means is that from the outside, I can have this variable here that says search text, and right now it says searching ... Okay? And that's why when you play the game and you run the search, it says searching. See that? Pretty easy. So because I made it a variable, this means that a designer can take this and change it. So let me go to the door. I'm going to get that search text variable, which is this one. I'm going to override it. And instead of searching, I want it to say, looks like a way out of here, right? I'll save this. Let me jump back into the game. Now watch what happens. I'm the player. I see a door from far away and I go, huh. And I search for clues and look at that. Looks like a way out of here. That's awesome, because now the player's got a clue, and now he could come and investigate. So if there was, say, a creepy picture on a wall of the owner of this haunted mansion or something from the 1800s or whatever, you can zoom into it and you can give the player whatever clue you want. Think of the old Resident Evil games when you would hit the search button or whatever on all kinds of stuff in the pre-rendered backgrounds. A lot of times there was nothing there, so the player would literally say, nothing useful here, or looks like this door is broken, it can't be opened, or things like that, right? Which is pretty cool, and it's perfect for an adventure game or something like this. Perfect. So we escape out of there. We're going to go back to the door. Now, to open the door, I have another component here, which is this one here. Sometimes it's really hard to select that. It's this one here to action. So I have two overlap components. If I go to my parent class, you can see them. I have an IO, interactive object, overlap, which is basically just, if I go to add component, it's one of these. It's just a box collision. And the IO action, which is the trigger that we want to use to activate like the door handle or the doorknob, is this guy right here. And this one is nothing more than a sphere collision component, which is called IO action. So if I go back to the door, you'll see here is the IO action, which is inherited from the parent, and there it is on the door. So it's around the doorknob because I want the player to have to look at the doorknob in order to get that clue that says, you know, open the door, whatever, right? So what I can do, if I go back to the parent class, I'm going to go down here. I haven't started commenting this stuff because this stuff is fresh. I just did it, so I'll comment it later when I get a chance. But right now, there's an event here from the blueprint interface. If I go back to that, remember I said these guys were going to come in handy later? Well, they're coming in handy now. So if I go back to the parent class, I have an event called action tip start. So here's action tip start and action tip end. The reason I have a start and an end is because of this. So that when I'm close to the doorknob and I'm looking right at it, it gives me a tip. That's the action tip. And the tip is, please activate me. And a tip can be modified. It could say, you know, I think I can open this door. Or, hey, I have the key now. I can open it. Whatever it is, right? It's up to the designer to put whatever they want. If you look away, boom, it goes away. So you look at it, and if I get too far away from it, it goes away. I have to get within a certain range, and that range is modifiable, so I can change that range, make it closer, make it further away. It depends, whatever in the world I want to do. So we can open a door. Let me close that interface. So it's pretty simple. So when the player, let me close that. Here's the action capsule. So the action capsule is what controls that that looking function. When you look at the doorknob, it gives you a tip. This is what does that. So first, we make sure that the object we're looking at, the doorknob in this case, is valid. If it is, then we're going to run this action tip start, which is this guy. And then that's going to run this function here, which is the same function that runs the search thing over here, right? So the function's called tooltip for search or action. It's the same exact thing. It loads up the HUD IO, gives access to the text so that I can use a variable like this one, the action text, change it. So here it is. It says, please activate me. So what I can do is I can go back to the door. I can select the action text variable, change the text. So maybe now I want to say, press action button to open door. I know, not very creative, whatever. It serves its purpose. So if I jump in the game now it says press action button to open door. Okay, press the action button, boom, door's open. Or this door is locked and cannot be opened. Jump back into the game. This door's locked and cannot be opened. Well, we better go find the key, right? So I'm going to leave it on press action button to open door. That's what it'll be for now. Cool. So that's how we can modify stuff. That's why parent classes are so important. So I have a parent class that has basic functionality. If I look at Xmind, it's a lot of this functionality here. It's got some other stuff too that I didn't put in Xmind. I probably should do that for just to keep things coherent. But if I go back to Unreal, when I get the action tip start, I write the action tip, please activate me, or whatever it is on the screen. When I get action tip end, we remove the widget, and that's what makes the tip disappear when you stop looking right at the doorknob. Okay? And the way that works is pretty simple. On component begin overlap of the action capsule, that's the one that you use to look at the doorknob and activate that little tip to open the doorknob. When you end overlap, meaning you look away from it, I activate this action tip end, right? Which is going to run this here, which will remove the widget from the view. That way you don't get the tip anymore when you look away from the door. And then finally I have this event action, and it's just a print string right now. It says you activated something cool, just for debugging purposes. And that's pretty much, this is not a big blueprint. As you can see, it's pretty basic and simple. One important thing though, I did have to create my own object channel for collision. So this box collision for the IO overlap, and this sphere collision for the IO action. If I go down here and I check the collision parameters and I open up the collision presets, you're going to see that it's set to custom. And I basically turned everything off except one object response channel, which is this one down here called action. Don't bother looking for it, you're not going to find it. This action channel is not in Unreal 4. I added it myself, and I'll show you how to do that. If you go back to your project settings and you go to the collision section under engine, you can create your own custom object channels and your own custom trace channels. I won't go into detail in this video what that means, but what it means is you can create up to 18 custom channels to use for objects and traces. I don't care about traces right now. What I care about is objects. So down here you'll see that I have a new object channel called action, and the default response is overlap. If I want to create a new one, I just click on new object channel. This little pop-up window comes up. I can give it a name. In my case I called it action, and I changed the default response to overlap, and then I hit accept. When I did that, this new action overlap object channel popped up, right? And that goes into your project settings. So what that means is that then I can go into blueprint and I can go to these guys and I can switch. By default this will probably be set to overlap all dynamic, so it looks something like that. And what I need to do is set it to custom, hit ignore up here in the very top to turn off everything. And then down in action, I want to set that to overlap. And then of course compile and save your blueprint. And now what will happen is you have this action object response channel that I can use for actions, for the action button, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to isolate that. So that's pretty much it. That's how that works. Let me see. I kind of went over everything, so I won't break this video up in two, or I don't know, it's almost 30 minutes now. I don't know who watches 30-minute YouTube videos, so I apologize for that, but it was just a lot of stuff to cover in this video. Anyway, that's the way that works. It's working pretty well. Over here you've got this action input, that's with the space bar or the A key on a gamepad, on an Xbox One gamepad. And what happens here is when you hit the action button, spacebar, it'll first check and make sure that you're inside of the range, right? Because you don't want the player to be able to activate the door from way out here, right? You want it to be pretty close up like this. And looks like I Yeah, it looks like I broke it. When I was messing around with the object channels, I must have broken it or did something over here. See. Oh, that's the problem. Yeah, I see what happened. I did break it, but I know how I broke it. So when I showed you a moment ago, when I switched this to overlap all dynamic, it switched my object type to world dynamic. That is a gotcha. That got me the first time, and I was like, why isn't this working? And it took me a moment to realize that. So if I hit this, set it to custom, I set ignore all, I go down to action and tell it to do overlap. I want to not forget to go to object type and set this to action. Because if you don't, nothing's going to work. And then you're going to get frustrated and you're going to get really pissed off. Okay, there we go. Action button opens the door. Action button closes the door. Open, up, close. Open, close. Cool. Right, so that's how that works. So I created my own custom object collision channel to get this to work the way that I wanted to. Technically, you don't have to do that, but I did it because it's a little bit more organized and I have more control over things later down the road. So that's pretty much it. That's how that works. If I go back to the door blueprint, go to the event graph, all I do is take this event action event, and if I go back to the player blueprint, this is not the action event, this one is. So when I hit the action by the spacebar, we check and make sure that the player isn't, that the player is ready, or is player ready to activate IO object. Okay, it should be true. How do we know if this is true? Well, it's if the player is within range of it. So over here, I check my action capsule and I make sure if this guy goes off, it means that we're really close to the object. It means that we're seeing the tooltip in our face. That means that we're ready to activate the object, which means this becomes true. So this allows us to press the action button and send this action event to this guy down here, which runs this print string. But in the door, it does something else. The action event calls the parent, which causes the print string, and then there's a flip-flop, and then there's a timeline which opens the door. And what it does is it rotates the door on its z-axis and sets its new rotation using this timeline. And if I hit the button again, it'll flip-flop, and when I hit it again, it'll toggle and reverse the door. That's why the door closes when I hit the button again. So the first time I hit it, door opens. If I hit it again, door will close. Hit it again, door will open. Hit it again, door closes. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, that's pretty much it. I need to comment this stuff. I'm not going to do it now. I'll do it later on my own time. I won't waste your time by having you watch me comment a bunch of blueprint nodes. So that's pretty much it. Took me a little while to get this whole thing up and running, but now that I've got it up and running, the cool thing is I can create more child blueprints, because this door, if I look up here, the parent class is the IO parent class, which is this guy. Okay, and what that means is that I can go to content browser. This is my parent class. Here's my door that's based off of this parent class. Now what I can do is I can come in here, right click, hit create child blueprint class, and now I can create an IO door B. Maybe this is a sliding door or a shutter, one of those shutters that goes in front of like most businesses, like a liquor store or something like that. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's IO underscore poster on a wall, and it doesn't open a door, but when you interact with it, maybe you get a little text that says this is a weird poster, there's nothing important here, or something like that. So really, the sky's the limit with this stuff, and that's kind of the cool thing about Blueprint, is you can create these blueprints that have base functionality, and then you can build on that with child classes and create the most complex game that you can think of, as long as you got the time and the energy and the motivation to do it. So that's going to do it for this vid doc. This was a big one. I'll try to keep them shorter from now on. In the next one, I'll show you some more cool stuff that I come up with.